Hello, boons and future boons. We got the next part of Enter Heaven, and I really didn't like where they left us last time, so I'm just gonna get right into it because what was that? The middle of a backstory and go, nah. Proposal for improving the living conditions of the Outer Rim residents. Elysiana Franca tosses her tablet down. I'm guessing that's the mom. I sent you on such an important assignment so you could learn about what being my successor entails. But now it looks like you came back more foolish than when you left. Who are the residents of the Outer Rim? They aren't any humans. There aren't any humans there, the last time I checked. Mother. That entire place is filled with garbage and nothing else. After being granted the privilege of escaping the surface and seeking refuge underground, they chose to hold themselves up in that dump. That makes them garbage. If you really view those things as people, then that tells me all I need to know about how poor your judgment is. There are children who were born there who aren't like that. It may be true that the adults who went there were weak and made foolish decisions, as you say. But those children never had a choice. That doesn't matter. Being born in a dump still makes them garbage. What kind of logic is that? If their lives are meant to be anything more than that, then they'll find a way to survive, to get stronger, and to make it out of there. If they can't, it simply means they were born weak and they will die weak. That is the law of nature. I've said it many times before. Humanity as a whole must become strong, only by casting aside the weak and strengthening ourselves. Can we survive in this world where inhumane monsters run rampant? Have you really not learned that yet? Still, they're just children. If you really can't understand, you aren't qualified to be the heir of Elysian. Don't become weak, Harper. The heir of the great Elysian must not be swayed by pity for the weak. Be clear what you keep and what you cast away. For the sake of a stronger human race, the weak must be discarded. Otherwise, humanity will never grow stronger. It is only through strength that humans can avoid falling behind in this inverted ecosystem and accomplish the great feat of reclaiming the surface. Okay. It was then that a thought came to mind. If we only pursue strength in an attempt to avoid extinction, and in the process we discard our humanity, can we really still be regarded as human? When that thought hit me, I couldn't take it any longer. For days on end, I kept asking myself, what is true strength? And then, finally, I came to a conclusion. If being Elysian's heir meant I wasn't allowed to think like that, then I would give up my position. Harper! Ingrid. Are you really leaving? Things just turned out this way. Sorry. Looks like we won't be getting tested together anymore. And Mother's okay with it. No. She was angry. She called me pathetic and wouldn't let me take anything with me, saying maybe I'd get the sense sucked into me and come back. I've got nothing, aside from these weapons. You really want to save that place that badly? Yeah. I'm going to turn the Outer Rim into a place where people can live. like human beings. And then I'm going to show the entire world. I'll prove that there are real people living there, in the place everyone else calls a dump, and that they can no longer ignore them. And to Mother, I'll prove that the strength that humanity actually needs to pursue doesn't come from some extreme version of survival of the fittest, but that the strong need to help the weak and give them the chance to get stronger so that everyone can grow together. And that it's only by retaining our humanity that we can truly become strong. That's the strength of humanity that I'm after. And what I want to prove to everyone. Things may not go the way you want. I'm not trying to say that everything Mother said was right. And there are definitely those who've given up and only take from others, rather than making an effort themselves. If you start preaching your ideals to such people, they might take advantage of you. There will be those who learn you came from the Ark, and that you were Legion's heir. And out of jealousy, they'll threaten you, and try to use violence. You won't be able to rest for even a second. Yet in spite of all that, you still want to hold onto your ideals. Well, when it comes to violence, unless they're Nikke's, armed like soldiers in the surface reclamation wars, they'll surely be weaker than you, so I think I'll be fine. Idiot, you can't let your guard down. No matter how strong you are, you're bound to fall if you get careless. I know. That's a valuable lesson Mother hammered into us as children. Look, I know what you're trying to say. The Outer Rim will be dangerous. I realize not everyone there will be good like the children I saw. But even so, I refuse to give up. Unfortunately, that means I won't be able to help you. I know you want us to work together on your plan to make humans and Nikke stronger through technology and tactics. Still, I'll be looking forward to watching you from afar as you create Legion's finest forces. An absolute squad who will bring unmatched tactics to any fight. An eccentric squad who will protect others from berserk Nikkes. The Legion Harper extends her hand to Ingrid. Alright. I'm really hoping you prove to Mother that you're right. Let's both succeed in what we're trying to do, wherever we may be. Ingrid firmly grasps Ye's arm, hand. Whoopies. Redo that. Ingrid firmly grasps EH's hand. Take care of yourself. You too. Aww. At least she still cares about her sister. That's nice.
銃を撃ちすぎるとネイルが剥がれちゃうのに。手持ち無沙汰だ。すっごくワクワクする。楽しい。私の愛受け取ってくれる？一番効果的な解決法は暴力。当てちゃうぞ。この爆竹遊びも大成功。爆竹遊び始めるよ。リロード。あくびが出てくんだけど。全部私の愛。爆竹を全部爆発させるよ。なーりん見た？全部私が倒したんだよ。
You came straight to the outer rim after that. Yeah. If I wanted to change the outer rim, I figured I had to live here myself. And I'll tell you, I was surprised at what troubled me the most while living here. It wasn't the thugs picking fights because I was an outsider, or living in a house without a ceiling, which I'd never experienced before. Nor was it the thieves I tried to enter in whenever I closed my eyes. It was the fact that there was no light, just like those children had said. Aside from the faint glow of the dome of eternity seeping in from beyond the massive barrier, there was no light in the outer rim. So I decided to change that first. When I began, I noticed there were a bunch of wires everywhere that didn't seem to be used for anything. They are capable of drawing power, though, so getting electricity wasn't difficult. The challenge was finding someone in the outer rim who had done electrical work before. I managed to finally find someone after a long search, and we began building streetlights together. We gathered bulbs from the landfill that could still be used, and installed them one by one. Wow, it's so bright! What is this? It's so pretty. What's the big deal? Why are you making such a fuss over a few light bulbs? They're too bright, I say. Why are you even trying to lighten up this landfill anyway? Your eyes will get used to the brightness. This may be the outer rim, but we're still human beings, and we deserve to live in the light, don't we? Well, I suppose that's true. I think we need to start trying to live more like people. After all, we're humans, even if we may not live in the Ark. After that, I installed lights along what was considered the main street. Gradually, people began gathering under the light, and then eventually, Boss! 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 At some point, you'll begin calling me boss, and that wasn't all. I want to live somewhere with more light. I want to see a brighter world. I want to feel the world beyond the partition. They started saying these kinds of things to me. I figured that since I was the one who brought these people together, I had to respond to them. So I shouted, "Let's head toward heaven. Let's prove to the world that we are alive, and show them that we are people. One day we shall cross the partition into a world overflowing with light. Let us ascend back into heaven." From that moment on, we took the name Heavenly Ascension. Ah, so that's how I started. So she didn't, it wasn't even meant to be a terrorist group to begin with. They're just trying to make the outer rim better. See?
ダーリン見た？全部私が倒したんだよ。
I see. The more I hear, the less I understand. Why'd you resort to terrorism? Everything you've said sounds pretty far removed from that sort of violence. You're right. That wasn't how we operated in the beginning. At first, we were almost like a neighborhood watch group, just trying to make the Outer Rim a better place to live. We made people in the Outer Rim get jobs. It could be any kind of work, even a darker kind. No matter what it was, we made a rule that if you worked, you received compensation. Some gangs liked us, and others hated. But we approached all the established crime bosses the same, trying to settle matters by whatever means possible, and then form tactic alliances with them. That's how we came to know Underworld Queen. We made an agreement with them to protect one another, and that became our greatest source of strength at the time. As word spread that they were backing us, smaller gangs fell in line a bit more, and they started protecting homes for Outer Rim residents in exchange for payment. Slowly but surely, the Outer Rim gradually stabilized. And that's when people started raising their voices. They said the time had finally come for us to speak with the Ark. We may have been living in a landfill, but at least we were living like humans. And they said it was time we showed the Ark that. So, we tried. We secretly crossed the partition, put up posters, and shouted slogans. The Outer Rim isn't a landfill. There are many people who live there. Right now, there are many who are living amidst garbage without ever seeing a single ray of light. Your attention can bring light to the people of the Outer Rim. It can bring a new future to the children growing up there. Bring light to the Outer Rim. Bring light to the outlaws. We focus on raising our voices. But don't trespassers get killed on the spot if they get caught. Not back then. It wasn't as difficult as it is now for outlaws to enter the Ark. Security wasn't as tight. Also, outlaws weren't considered a threat back then. But that also means there was no one willing to listen. Right now, there are many who are living amongst garbage without ever seeing a single ray of light. Your attention can bring light to the people of the Outer Rim. Aww. Boss, are you okay? I don't know what you're going on about, but shut it. I can't stand the noise. Verbal and physical abuse felt almost preferable to nothing. It at least meant they were listening. The real problem was how the majority of people were so indifferent. Everyone pretended not to hear, just staring at their phones as they walked past. What's she doing in the middle of the street? Excuse me. Oh no, I made eye contact. No one wearing earphones hurries away. It felt like I was shouting into the void. And it wasn't just me. I'm sure everyone who was there with me felt the same. We started to change our strategy and sent petitions directly to the central government. After we sent dozens, even hundreds of them, they finally agreed to arrange a meeting. We were hopeful that we were finally getting one step closer to what we wanted. But how come no one's here? It's been 6 hours. Did we get the date wrong? No. This is the right date. Lesbian Harper looks at the door of the meeting room, knowing no one is coming. After that happened several times, we got the message. No matter how much we petitioned them, the central government would not meet us. No matter how much we shouted, the Ark would not listen. We grew more and more exhausted until a certain someone proposed something, and they refused to listen to us. Why don't we make it so they have no choice but to hear us out? No way. Of course it's Crow. Of course. We'll put on a grand fireworks show. One they can't possibly ignore. Yeah. It was Crow. Of course it was Crow.
あれ全部倒したら褒めてくれるよね。全部私の愛思いっきりいじめてあげる。装填中ちょうどいいところだったのよ。リロードするわ。リロードの時間です。結果は気に入ったか？中央政府の番犬さん。
Crow was part of Heavenly Ascension too. Yeah. I don't know how she joined or who vouched for her. All I remember is hearing she was born in the Outer Rim, At first, she was quiet, diligent, and devoted. She patrolled the Outer Rim with us, and went to the Ark with us to demand better rights. She went without hesitation to places other members avoided, and withstood all the physical and verbal abuse, and even the indifference. The reason I thought of her as a comrade, despite our philosophical differences, was because I saw how devoted she was then. But at some point, she stopped being quiet and started speaking up, raising her voice, and expanding her influence. While I was away from the Outer Rim to meet with the central government, she built up a small faction inside Heavenly Ascension. That's how much influence she'd gotten. You want to resort to terrorism? Are you out of your mind? Whoa, calm down. Why are you getting so worked up? Terrorists? Terrorism's a scary word, don't call it that. So the Ark is so bright, they can't seem to see those of us who are living in the darkness. I'm just saying, we should line off some fireworks to help them see better. Oh, don't try to make it sound harmless with words like fireworks. Your plan is practically the definition of terrorism. You want to sneak bombs into the key central government facilities and detonate them. 10 of people in the Ark would die. It would be catastrophic. Why shouldn't we care? Let the bigwigs in the Ark deal with all that. Do you think anyone in the Ark cares about us? About how many die of sickness? Or how many children are going blind because there's no light? Or how many are killed by explosives that got mixed in with the trash? We screamed our lungs out, but they didn't care one bit. It's the same thing. Our people are dying from sickness or accidents isn't the same as outright murder. And unlike us, the Ark has a super high performance AI managing everything. Come on, boss. You've lived there before. You don't have to pretend like you haven't. We all know you came from the Ark. How dare you accuse the boss of being from the Ark? Do you have any idea what she's done for the Outer Rim? Oh, of course I do. I'm well aware of how hard our dear boss has worked for the Outer Rim, and how much has changed since she came here. How could I not? You're a good person, boss. Even I know that. I doubt there's a single person in the Outer Rim who hasn't benefited from your efforts. We know how hard you've tried. That's why we've all followed you this whole time, including me. And that never happened with anyone else. You threw everything away and came to the Outer Rim with nothing. Then lived alongside us for years, and brought light to this dump that had been covered in darkness. But what resulted from that? No one listens to us. No one remembers us. Why? Because it isn't sensational enough. And that's the thing about people in the Ark. Their lives are so peaceful, and they've had so much handed to them since birth, that you can ask them as sweetly and kindly as you want. Even raise your voice, and they won't so much as spare you a glance. If it isn't sensational, they dismiss it as boring and couldn't care less. So what? What are you trying to say? And how does this all lead to us becoming terrorists? Terrorists? Didn't I say not to use scary words like that? We can still do what you want, boss, and go into the Ark to tell them what we think. All I'm saying is, we add a little spice to our words, that we do it in the outlaw way. We make it a game to get them more involved. If they find the bombs before they go off, the Ark wins. If they don't, and the bombs go off first, we win. But seeing how they already have so much, and we have so little, it's only fair that we apply just a tiny handicap to them. We'll know the entire plan, but they won't. Once they get engrossed in this little game of ours. they'll finally start listening to what we have to say. I guarantee it. So, Hero takes one more step toward Alicia and Harper. Just this once, I like us to do things my way. What do you say, boss? The looks in her eyes told me that she'd go through with it, even if it meant having to go through me. She spoke in a way to rile others up, highlighting how we were together in this, and sugarcoating her words to downplay the crime and make it feel justified. Bro was an agitator, and a charismatic one at that. The others were starting to agree with more and more of what she said, and that's when I realized something. Boss, what we need isn't to throw a tantrum like timid children. We need a revolution. One with fire and blood, because the truth is, those things can be avoided if we're going to get what we want. But that'll never happen if we do things your way, will it? That's why I'm gonna do it instead. I realized I had to put a stop to it. No, I can't allow that. What you said is right. My way is peaceful and uneventful. It's never going to disturb the people of the Ark. I understand wanting to give them a shock. People might actually remember our name if we do, but killing people is a completely different story. All we'd be doing is giving them the go-ahead to shoot every one of us. And not just us, but everyone in the Outer Rim. Like you said, we have nothing compared to them. That goes for firepower too. True. But they get serious and come here for blood. We'd be lucky to escape, never mind defend ourselves. It wouldn't even be a fight. Of course, we've all snuck into the Ark before, so we might be able to flee there. But what about everyone else in the Outer Rim? The children, sick, elderly. Who's going to protect them? And it's not just the central government. The reason we were able to make a pact with Underworld Queen wasn't because we were so determined that we shed blood for our cause, but rather because we were protesting peacefully for our rights. If we do things your way, that pact would collapse. All the order that we spent years establishing would collapse. Order, huh? That's why I'll never approve your plan. It's not just for our sake, but for everyone's. For everyone's sake. You say you're afraid the central government will set their sights on all outlaws, but that's easy enough to solve. We just change what we've been shouting this whole time. What do you mean? We stop saying, bring light to the Outer Rim, bring light to the outlaws. Instead, we make sure they know it's us. Light is our right, heavenly ascension. We change our slogan. Then the government won't target everyone in the Outer Rim, but only heavenly ascension, right? That's... No? Well, you're the boss. I get what you're worried about. Ro picks up the paper with her plan on it. Pretend I didn't say anything. Thanks for understanding. And like I said, you're the boss. Ro turns to leave, then stops. But there's one thing you should know. Not everyone's like you. They don't all worry about the other people in the Outer Rim. And they're not all that patient either. Crow leaves the room. She seems dangerous. Shouldn't we keep an eye on her? Alicia and Harper looks around the room. A few people glance toward the door, like they want to follow Crow out. Yes, please do. I had a gut feeling, though, that her plan couldn't be stopped. From that day on, Heavenly Ascension split into two factions. The moderates who wanted to raise their voices without straying too far from the old way, and the hardliners who said the old way would never work and that extreme measures were required. Naturally, Crow led the hardliners. At the time, both sides thankfully understood one another, even if they disagreed on which method to use. We at least knew why everyone chose the way they did. And the hardliners didn't cross the line. But, as I feared, the hardliners started keep getting more and more extreme. It didn't matter how much I tried to restrain them or persuade them otherwise. And before long, that ominous feeling I had was made a reality. The terrorist attack she had brought me that day was carried out in secret. They only changed the location. We just received news of a terrible tragedy. A large-scale terrorist bombing has occurred on AFX train operated by a Legion. The incident took place as the train was entering the station platform. The explosion, which came from within the passenger cars, not only destroyed the train, but also caused the station structure to collapse, resulting in a terrible tragedy. The central government has deployed numerous Nikkes to the site to conduct rescue operations. But due to the extent of the collapse, the number of casualties continues to rise. Meanwhile, according to the testimony of one of the survivors, a passenger on the train stood up, pulled out a detonator, and shouted the following just before activating it. AFX incident. Yeah. The worst terrorist attack in the Ark's history was set in motion by Crow. Light is our right, heavenly ascension. Using her slogan. Crow. Ruining everything. This is Crow predicted after the AFX incident. The name Heavenly Ascension spread across the entire arc. The thing we'd shouted, which no one ever listened to, finally spread everywhere. Arc since began to recognize that people live in the Outer Rim. As soon as public opinion started to deem the central government's initial response as inadequate, the government got in touch with us, saying they wanted to enter into negotiations. Kind of negotiations. They said they would listen to everything we had to say. Of course, given how much death and destruction the attack had caused, we were on high alert. But the government assured us they were aware that only a small number of us were behind it, and that we could bring as many armed guards as we wanted if we were uneasy. Even still, I hesitated. The one who ultimately convinced me was my mother. I'll hear you out. Come if you want to clean up this mess. That was the message I got from her. So we decided to arm ourselves and head over. I figured that the attack had already happened, and sitting around wasn't going to change anything. How do you think it went? Not very well, would be my guess. Why would you think that? If it had gone well, there wouldn't have been any other attacks. Bingo. It didn't end well. Just as we suspected, the meeting was a trap. A trap laid by my mother. Of course. When we made it to the conference room, it wasn't people in there who were waiting for us. It was mass-produced Nikkes, armed with the Legion's latest weapons. Kidding. The moment the meeting room door opened, they started firing before we even had a chance to react. In that storm of bullets, I watched as my comrades threw themselves in front of me. Stop! Let me go! I should be in there! I should be dying with them! Get together, boss! We have to live. That's the only way their deaths will mean anything. One of them hoisted me onto his back and jumped out the window. That's how I survived. Everyone who went to that meeting that day died. Everyone except me and the man who jumped out the window with me. It's terrible. After that, nothing could stem the tide. Not only did the majority of moderates defect to the hardliners, the remaining moderate became grounds for being labeled a traitor. The resentment of being treated like garbage for so long, the betrayal from being deceived into approaching the negotiation table, the desire for revenge on behalf of all the comrades we'd lost. You take all those negative emotions, combine them with the precedents that Crow had set, and people began committing terrorist attacks all across the Ark. And after that, there was nothing I could do. I know it all started with me. But I'm the one who pulled the trigger when I said we'd lead the outer rim toward the light. But once that bullet was fired, it flew out of my control. Regardless of what I'd wanted, I was suddenly the leader of a terrorist organization. A leader who survived by hiding behind the bodies of her comrades. Did your mother ever contact you again? No. She assumed full responsibility for failing to kill me, the head of Heavenly Ascension, and stepped down as the lesbian CEO. That's why Ingrid had the CEO mantle thrust upon her so abruptly. As for me, I cast off the name of a lesbian Harper from that day forward, lived only as EH. Having become a powerless leader, incapable of doing anything, I wasn't even able to make decisions after that. All I could do was try to persuade them to carry out attacks that didn't kill anyone. That's pretty much how things were. Until the attack on the Ark that blew a hole in the Dome of Eternity. She tried her best though. Props for trying your best though. Crow's an ass. But that's all for today, and we'll continue in the next one. Until then,